Today, I'm going to be talking about, we're going to be discussing AI in construction. What's working now, what's next, and the Monday playbook to stay ahead. All right, so in this presentation, I want us to focus this conversation through a very practical lens, specifically around digital tools and workflows in construction, right? The AI conversation in our industry has somewhat became, it's now very big, very shiny, very exciting, and also a little bit detached from the actual day-to-day reality of project delivery. So I want us to bring us back to the site teams, project managers, document managers, and the people who are actually trying to keep projects moving. But before we begin, though, let me just, I know that she had introduced me. Let me just try and introduce myself a little bit. So yes, my name is Nyasha Nyatsine. I'm a construction technology specialist at Modena, and I have a background in architecture as a professional senior architectural technologist, a little bit over 10 years of experience in the industry. All right. So the question is AI coming? I don't think this should be a question we should be asking, because I think it's a hard yes. AI is already here. We're already using AI in a lot of things in our day-to-day activities. But what is genuinely useful right now, and what is likely to come next, and what should the teams actually be doing? All right. What is genuinely useful right now, right? I would say, let's start looking at the real problem first, right? Before we actually jump onto everything else. All right, the question is, the problem, we're saying, one of the biggest myths in construction is that teams don't have enough data. But I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's the problem. The real problem that we often have is too much scattered information. Our previous presenter was talking about a lot of data silos. That's too much scattered information that's just all over the place. We have inconsistent workflows, disconnected tools, unclear ownership. I think it was a question that was thrown by one of the audience here. All right, and so teams are actually busy, and platforms are full. People are uploading, reviewing, issuing, commenting, and approving. But that doesn't automatically mean that the project team has clarity. And that is where the real AI conversation, I think, will begin. And you are looking at, before AI gets clever, I think with all of us, we've been using AI for generating posters and invites and all of these things. But we know this, that AI has a tendency of sort of disconnecting itself now and then. That's because of the data we are feeding into it. So it needs to have coherent data that it can actually use, all right? So we know what's not working, and we know what needs to be fixed. Now let's look at what is actually working right now and what we can capitalize on. The good news is that we're already seeing value today, and interestingly enough, a lot of this value is coming not from advanced AI at all, but rather it's coming from better digital workflows, which result in better visibility, and all of this is credit to the correct use of common data environments. So that's platforms like Autodesk Construction Cloud, well, formerly known as Autodesk Construction Cloud, now known as Autodesk Forma. And a practical example from work, we've been involved in a couple of projects, but we want to try and focus more on the Forma build, docs data, reporting, and dashboard thinking. And we'll touch on this on a case study that we have done at work. And when it comes to teams, right, teams are using platforms like Autodesk Construction Cloud. And if they are using these platforms correctly, they are already generating useful project data through things like issues, forms, assets, schedules, and so on. Once the data is structured properly, you can begin turning it into dashboards and reports that can help teams actually understand what's going on. And what's important is that because of these dashboards, they are not just pretty visuals, right? I know a lot of people talk about dashboards as pretty visuals, but dashboards can be seen as the first real bridge between platform activity and management insight. All right, now let me ground this a little bit more practically. A lot of the work we've done as construction technology specialists in the industry sits around making build and docs data workflows more usable. And that includes thinking about how information is captured, how workflows are structured, and how reporting or dashboards can surface what matters to project teams. For development managers, project managers, and other stakeholders of the project, this means seeing which workflows are getting stuck, identifying overdue approvals, tracking document activity, understanding where issues are sitting, and seeing trends across forms, reviews, and getting a clearer picture of overall project health. And what's powerful about this is that it shifts the teams away from constantly chasing updates manually. Instead of asking 5 people what's happening, you can now build an environment where the data can tell you something. So not everyone, of course, not magically, but enough to support faster and better decisions. That to me is the most useful thing happening in construction right now. Not the hype, just better visibility. Now this is where the AI conversation starts becoming relevant, and we see opportunity for AI because dashboards tell us what is really happening on a project. AI starts helping us interpret what matters, what needs attention, and sometimes even what's likely to happen next. So the real opportunity is not jumping straight to a messy project delivery into some fantasy version of automation. The real opportunity is progression, that is digital workflow, structured data, dashboard insight, AI, then AI-assisted decision-making. This is the path that I think will make sense, all right? And because once the information has been captured consistently, AI can begin to add value in a very practical way, such as summarizing project status, identifying patterns in delays, flagging bottlenecks, highlighting abnormal workflow behavior, and surfacing overdue actions and helping teams query project information much, much faster. So the point is not that AI replaces anyone's job, but the point is that it can reduce admin friction and improve decision support. I'm now going to expand this more using a little bit more practical and a case study that we have actually worked on. So the case study, it's a shopping complex that we did with a development company in 4 ways. So the idea behind it was the challenge that the client was facing was the traditional tenant coordination problems. I think for those that are in development management, they should have an idea of tenant coordination. It involves a number of professionals from the tenant side and the, let's say, the landlord side, if I can put it. And before the implementation of our workflows, our digital workflows that we had, the client was facing fragmented communication across emails and shared drives, which is those scattered data silos that we're talking about, no central location for tenant drawings and approvals, difficulty in tracking design sign-offs, asset information collected late or inconsistently, and handover documentation incomplete or delayed. And I think for those that are in the industry, I think everyone here is somewhat part of the industry. We understand the importance of some of the things that I've just mentioned here. And tenant coordination generally is is a complex process in commercial developments because it involves multiple tenants, consultants, and base build teams that are trying to coordinate and approvals, compliance, and a lot of these things. So the goal of implementing, so what we did was we wanted to implement Autodesk Construction Cloud as a common data environment. And the goal of it was to try and, not try, but to achieve this, actually. To centralize all tenant documentation and create structured approval workflows, standardize tenant submission processes, capture asset information throughout construction, and enable a digital handover to property management. And then the ACC modules that we used, that's for the former modules that we used to try and achieve and bring all this information into one space. We used docs, build, assets, design, collaboration, forms, and templates. So the docs, we're using it to centralize the drawing and documentation in terms of management, build for workflows and issue tracking, and then assets for capturing asset data and tracking these assets. And under design collaboration, it was for model coordination for multiple disciplines to sort of do clash detections and a bunch of other things. And then under forms and templates is just to try and standardize submissions. And rather than implementing everything at once in the entire project, we tried to focus it mainly on tenant coordination workflows. And asset capture, as these were the key areas for this particular transformation. Right, and then with the tenant coordination workflow that we used, these were including, so the approval workflows, you're looking at the tenant consultant submitting architectural drawings, shop drawings, compliance, documentation, service coordination layouts, through structured workflows inside of ACC. So this was through forms, this was through reviews, this was through a number of these modules that we're using in Forma. And the idea was to try and bring all that information within this one space, all right? And so you find what was the actual workflow process for this tenant coordination was, okay, the tenant uploads drawings onto the same platform. The same drawing then is rerouted to automatic workflow where it gets rerouted to a submission, and then the base build consultants review the information, comments and issues are captured, and then approval and revision will be requested. Okay? And then all of this was resulting in a fully traceable approval process. And the design approval workflow that we used for base build and tenant design sign-offs and our ACC workflows also, this ensured approvals were structured. And the approval stages that we had is tenant submissions, where the tenant submits, the architect's reviews, structural engineer or any of the other disciplines review, and then the landlord approves the information. And the benefits of it, clear responsibility matrix, digital audit trail, and a faster turnaround times. With all this information moving, managing tenant design issues was critical, and using ACC issue management also was one of the things that we did, where design clashes were identified early, comments were attached directly to drawings. So you're looking at, we're working on the same file, the same drawing that the architects are busy working on in their office is the same drawing that the electrical engineers are commenting on, is the same drawing that project managers are viewing actively. So this is bringing about that information being shared instantly at the same time, and also capturing all the activities that are happening, comments that are being issued, rather than writing on a piece of paper that can be lost quickly and easily. We get to track we got to track all of this information under one platform. And with regards to our asset data strategy, you're looking at, we wanted to capture assets information early, and this was done in two ways. So the first one was through Revit, which we didn't really implement as well on that particular project. We're still working on it. I think on the later projects, we ended up implementing it a bit better. But on the first project, on the pilot project, the one I'm talking about, this was the pilot project, by the way, so we're still trying out a number of things. So we captured this information of assets through Revit, so that's bringing in assets, they were labeled as assets in Revit, brought into Forma, and then the other way, the one that we actually captured, because everything was now done in construction, all the professionals had already built the systems already. We captured it through structured information gathering. It's Excel files we created templates, send them out to the professionals, and then they fill them out. And we're trying to capture basically like assets that have been, what you consider an asset. So each and every project has what you can consider an asset. So you could think about HVAC equipment, you could think about mechanical systems, you could think about electrical assets and plant items as well. Okay, sorry, this thing just went back on me here. All right, and all this data then feeds into into dashboards. So we also have something which is more than an IQ, where all of this information is filtered through for the management to be able to see an overview of everything that's happening on that particular project. So, wow, it looks like this. It's dashboards, pretty pictures that we were talking about. But it's not just pretty visuals, right? The impact of this implementation then was operational improvements, which included centralized tenant coordination, faster drawing approval cycles, reduced email communication, full audit trail of design approvals, and structured asset data capture. And this improved project transparency, better collaboration across teams, and seamless transition to property management. All right, with all of this, the question is, what's next for these guys? So we now have captured this information. So this is now what we're saying, structured information that has been captured through the project. The AI modules can now start learning from this information here. So the next steps for these guys will be to integrate digital twins. I think it was mentioned earlier, beginning of the workshop, and linking asset data into facility management platforms and expanding automated workflows and leveraging analytics for portfolio management as well. With AI, the question, all right, let's see. Will AI run the entire project? I don't think so. It won't run the entire project, all right? AI, well, we need to stay a bit realistic as well and not just jump into science fiction as well. It's still today and we're not yet there. So the answer is no. AI will not run the entire project. It's just the next layer of practical usefulness, all right? So for build and docs workflows, this is what's next. I think the near-term opportunities look something like this, right? So AI will be helping teams generate quick project summaries from live platform data. AI will be helping flag workflows that have been sitting too long. AI will be identifying trends in unresolved issues, RFIs, reviews, and approvals. AI will be helping spot missing metadata, naming inconsistencies, anomalies, in document activities. And maybe, most importantly, AI will be making it easier for project teams to ask questions in plain language. All right, and so instead of digging through reports manually, project managers might be able to ask questions like, which workflows have been overdue for more than 7 days, for example, where the biggest approval bottlenecks are. And that kind of future, I think, is actually useful. Not that AI for the sake of AI, but AI for clarity, speed, and action. Okay, let's be real. What can't AI fix, all right? AI is fixing a lot of our problems in life. I think we can all agree on that. But what is it not fixing right now, especially in construction, right? Number one, AI will not fix poor process discipline. AI will not fix missing metadata. It will not fix inconsistent naming. It will not fix unclear ownership, right? And it definitely will not fix teams using a platform in 5 different ways on the same project. In fact, one of the most useful things AI might do is to expose those problems a little bit faster. So the workflow is, if the workflow is messy, AI doesn't just remove the mess. It often just shines a brighter light on it. And that's why I think the firms who are benefiting the most from AI will not necessarily be the ones chasing after the loudest tools, but the ones with the cleaner workflows, better data habits, clearer roles, and stronger discipline. All right, the Monday playbook that I had mentioned earlier. What would be the Monday playbook? Let's ask the practical question, what should teams actually do on Monday? I'll suggest a few things, all right? First, we need to audit what data is already being captured in your build and docs workflow. Not what you're hoping is being captured, but what actually is there. Secondly, we need to standardize the workflows that matter the most. Because you cannot automate chaos, and you definitely cannot build useful AI on top of inconsistent behavior. Third, let's improve metadata and status discipline. A lot of AI readiness is honestly just better data hygiene. And fourth, making reporting and dashboarding visible to project leaders, not just the system admins or digital teams. So the project leaders will also have an understanding of exactly what's happening on these projects. And then lastly, and this I think is very important, let's test AI as a support layer, not a replacement layer. Use it for summaries, pattern detection, searchability, and surfacing risk. This is where the teams can start seeing value without overcomplicating the whole conversation. All right, what can AI, better digital workflows, and better project data already unlock today? And how does AI build from there? A lot of the AI conversation in construction is still being framed around possibility. But those in the built environment, the better question is not to ask what AI could do someday. Rather, if better digital workflows and the quality project data are already transforming projects today, what becomes possible when AI builds on that foundation? And I think it's important to realize that we already have foundations where we already have project data being generated in these common data environments. And this means that opportunity in front of us is very real. It isn't just hype or magic. Just better information, better decisions, and less friction. And really, I really believe that the teams who stay ahead will be the ones to treat AI not just as a shiny extra, but as the next layer on top of the good process, good data, and good digital habits. Thank you, guys.